Now, is this technically a Spirit Halloween Little Red Riding Hood cloak? A little bit, yes. But that can be our little secret, shh. As can the fact that I'm not really a vampire, though I am the Antichrist, Satan's favorite daughter, here on Earth to do his bidding, cause a little chaos, but sucking out people's blood, doing blood rituals, potato. I'm also known as Haunted Hippie, of course, government name Kylie Roseanne, and I talk all things horror on this channel. So if that sounds good to you, if you like other top 10 lists like this, if you like deep dives, if you like reviews and other rankings, then click subscribe. And also click the like button and the notification bell, that way you never miss the next video. You want to join my cults? You want to join my cult so bad? Anyway, I was inspired to make this video because of Nosferatu that released just a couple weeks ago. That movie blew up. Suddenly it became the most popular horror release of the year right in the final hour. Also, things typically slow down for me in January, but I've been trapped in my house for a multitude of other reasons, like my car being totaled and Los Angeles being on fire. So I decreed January to be Vampire Month. I caught up on so many iconic vampire movies that I'd never seen. I still feel a little bit behind, but I'm definitely much more equipped to make this video now than I was, whoa, my earring fell out, before this past month. The spring is broken on these beautiful pentagram earrings, so this one consistently falls out. I'm gonna have to go with one. Can you even see my earrings? Whatever. I have a couple of honorable mentions. My honorable mentions, actually up through number 8, are all 3.5-star films, so not the strongest, but worth seeing, and I enjoyed them. Probably would watch them again. Now at the very bottom at number 14, I do have the original Nosferatu from 1922. It did a lot for me. I think that Max Schreck was an incredibly interesting actor. His portrayal of Nosferatu definitely felt unhuman, which is not entirely uncommon of that period because it was the silent era, so it was mostly theatrical actors that were gracing the screen for the very first time, and they brought a lot of physicality to their roles. But even so, Max Schreck definitely still was a standout. It's a gorgeous movie. I think that at times it is both unintentionally and intentionally hilarious. Super enjoyable, just didn't knock my socks off. Similarly, at number 13, we have Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. I still have not gone back to the theater and rewatched the movie. Number 1, because my car was totaled. I've been relying on my boyfriend to drive me around. Passenger princess for real, and honestly, it's getting old. But also because we have been having to stay home lest a fire spark up and we only have 20 minutes to pack our shit and get out of here. The fear of my home burning down definitely trumped my need to rewatch that movie in theaters before doing this ranking. I just felt personally that he didn't really do anything interesting with the source material, other than give us the most aesthetically gorgeous adaptation of Dracula, and possibly with the best performances. Apparently that's been debatable. I can get how that can be subject to opinion, but I don't think that it's very subjective how earnestly everybody was throwing themselves into their roles. Nonetheless, I realized in my exploration these past few weeks that I do not really enjoy the classic vampire stories. I did not like Dracula the book. I liked a couple of the adaptations. I didn't like the 58 version when I saw it a few years ago. I finally watched the original Dracula from 1931 for the first time and thought it was just so boring. A lot of them are not for me, and that also even includes some of the certified classics from the 80s. My personal taste concerning vampirism will become abundantly clear by the end of this video. To go right along with that sentiment, at number 12 we have Fright Night. Now Fright Night I gave 3.5 stars, so apparently I enjoyed it quite a bit, but right now I can't even tell you the plot. I can't remember a single thing about it. And hey, that's not a good sign. I don't know why that is, because clearly I really enjoyed it, but being that this is my job and being that I have logged like 1,700 movies on Letterboxd in the last 4 years, a few things, they're not going to get filed away. My brain is going to say, hey, maybe we don't need to keep this one sometimes. And for some reason, Fright Night was one of those. I don't know why. I wanted to rewatch it before filming this video, but I ended up prioritizing a couple other movies that I'm really glad that I did. I remember thinking that it was super fun. I love 80s horror. It's potentially my favorite decade, but that's kind of hard to say. Now, if you're younger, if you're more part of my generation, if you haven't heard of Fright Night, teenage Charlie Brewster is a horror film junkie, so it's no surprise that when a reclusive new neighbor moves next door, Brewster becomes convinced he's a vampire. It's also no surprise when nobody believes him. After strange events begin to occur, Charlie has no choice but to turn to the only person who could possibly help: washed-up television vampire killer Peter Vincent. See, that sounds so fun. I remember having so much fun with this movie, which is why I put it above the other Nosferatus, because at several points throughout literally every adaptation of Nosferatu, or I shouldn't say Nosferatu, every version of Nosferatu, I found myself bored at several points in all 3 of them. them. I know that there's also one where Willem Dafoe plays Max Schreck. I have not seen that movie. I really wanted to, but the beauty of making this list before I'm entirely caught up is that I'm bound to get some really good recommendations from you guys. So feel free to drop those in the comments as we go. I have a strong suspicion that were I to rewatch Fright Night, it might inch its way at least into the top 10. My number 11, my last honorable mention, would be Daybreakers. This is a movie that I would love to do a Does Anyone Remember plot breakdown for. I tried to start that series on my channel, didn't really pop off, so I'm not going to put in the effort. 10 years after a plague turns most of the world's population into vampires, a critical blood shortage causes panic and gruesome mutations among the reanimated. Edward, a vampire hematologist, tries to develop a blood substitute when he meets Lionel and Audrey, two fugitive humans who claim to have a possible cure. I can't believe that I never knew this movie existed before it was sent to me, and honestly I'm going to save my thoughts on a full review here because it is an honorable mention, and also it's going to be part of my January recap. That movie is insane. I did write down a couple of timestamps to share with you some of the insanity. I just had a lot of fun with it. It is not good. It is part of the unhinged Twilight era of vampire movies, an era that I realized I really enjoy. I couldn't in good faith put it in my top 10 because it is really bad, but I enjoyed myself quite a bit. Willem Dafoe is there. Like, how many vampire movies has that man been in? And I'm just such a sucker for Ethan Hawke, so I was bound to love it a little bit. I just want to say that you're probably not going to love it as much as I did. That's fine. I wouldn't say I loved it, but would definitely rewatch. Anyway, I'm also here to let you know that I'm just about to get into my top 10, but I wanted to let you know that I forgot this honorable mention, and honestly, I really wanted to put it in my top 10, but you're gonna understand why I didn't. Vampires Suck is very important to me. Aside from Ike Barinholtz in Brownface cosplaying as an indigenous person, it is a perfect film. Like, I love it so much, but I didn't want to put it on my list because I just didn't feel like it really is technically a vampire film. Yet in many ways, technically it is. But you know what I mean. You know what I mean. I think it's the best parody ever made. I just wanted to give it a shout here. Love you, Vampires Suck. Love you. If that upsets you a little bit, you're not gonna like the rest of my list, by the way. Okay. Mwah. But now let's finally get into my actual top 10. At number 10, I do have an 80s classic. We have The Lost Boys. It might seem sacrilegious to some that this is so far down on my list. I've never fully got this movie, but I appreciate the chaos. Again, for any youngins in the crowd, teenage brothers Michael and Sam move with their mother to a small town in Northern California. While the younger Sam meets a pair of kindred spirits and geeky comic book nerds, Edward and Alan, the angst-ridden Michael soon falls for Star, who turns out to be a thrall to David, leader of a local gang of vampires. This one is fun. The Lost Boys is fun. I just think that narratively, it's a little bit of a mess. I love the twists and turns that we take. I love some of the pop culture references. I love majority of the cast, but it's one that's remained very steady for me. I hope that I grow to love it more as I age, but with every viewing I've had at the movie, it's just stayed at a consistent 3.5 stars. It's just a good time. Kiefer Sutherland, I'm realizing, might also be one of my favorite actors. The ending of the movie truly has to be seen to be believed. The Lost Boys it has a lot going for it. But again, when it comes to my personal taste in vampire movies, you'll understand why I'm not quite as drawn to this one. Now, had Michael just outright sort of had a bisexual awakening, if that was his arc, then this movie would have spoken to me a lot more, clearly. Moving on to my number 9, we have 30 Days of Night. Jumping forward a couple of decades, this one came out in 2007, luckily a year just before Twilight, because if that came out in the same era, their box office would have been in trouble. In the far northern hemisphere, the small town of Barrow, Alaska experiences a solid month of darkness every year. Though most of the residents head south for the winter, some townspeople remain behind. However, those that stay regret their decision when one year, hungry vampires descend on Barrow to feed. This one is fun. It is one of the last vampire movies of the early 2000s to go full tilt horror before Twilight came along. It is produced by Robert Tappert and Sam Raimi, so you know that there is a lot of really fun gore, a lot of ridiculous, super fun action. That's definitely one thing that I can really appreciate about a vampire movie. I love all ends of the spectrum of vampire movies, except for apparently the super gothic ones, which I don't understand. Actually, that's not true. There's a really gothic one coming up here, but I'm a gothic girly. I love the aesthetics of movies like Crimson Peak. I obviously am goth myself, so everything about the whole Dracula, the castle, that should appeal to me a lot. I just have yet to find that kind of a vampire movie that reaches the quality of some of the other kind of subsects of of the subgenre. Anyway, 30 Days of Night, it falls into the action-packed, gory category. And also the look of the vampires is super unique. Of all the vampire movies I've explored, I haven't seen ones where they look like this. Their teeth remind me a little bit of the teeth they had in Abigail, except that in 30 Days of Night, they actually look good. You also get some twists and turns in this story, and there also is a little bit more of a central focus on the drama between the humans. I really enjoy that. The leads are Josh Hartnett and Melissa George. They play husband and wife, but it's dramatic. You don't really know the current state of their relationship when you first start the movie. And there are a lot of ebbs and flows as things progress, because this movie does take place, I think, over the course of the entire month when it's dark. Just for all those unique qualities, definitely earned its spot on this list. Now, at number 8, we have Shiver of the Vampires. I think it's pronounced Jean Rollin, the director. He's French. He made another handful of vampire movies besides this one, and I really wish that I had seen them before making this list, but I felt that having at least one of his movies represent his body of work would be good enough for now. And then if you guys are fans of his, you can let me know which ones I should prioritize. A young honeymooning couple stop for the night at an ancient castle. Unbeknownst to them, the castle is home to a horde of vampires who have their own plans for the couple. This one was released in 1971, so it's dripping in a lot of the psychedelic atmosphere that you would find kind of in the late 60s. I think on Letterboxd for this one, I said something like, I don't really care that something good happened to them, this should happen to me. This one's all about the vibes. The plot is unimportant. That is secondary. Not secondary even. The point is the atmosphere and getting to just live in this type of a moment for about an hour and a half. At the time that I watched it, it was a 3.5-star experience. I feel like that would go up on a rewatch. I love me some sexy psychedelia. I really need to find more vampire movies that have that kind of distinct tone. And maybe Jean is the only one to really do it, so I just need to check out more of his stuff. But that is the one that I was referring to as being the gothic vampire flick that finally catered to my sensibilities. Vampirism is sex, and unfortunately a lot of movies do not understand that. Anyway, moving on to my number 7, which would be Blade. This is an iconic vampire flick and one that has gotten some sequels and is supposed to be getting a requel, and the news on that is just dead. I don't know what's going on, but let's talk about this original movie. A half-mortal, half-immortal is out to avenge his mother's death and rid the world of vampires. The modern-day technology advanced vampires he is going after are in search of his special blood type needed to summon an evil god who plays a key role in their plan to execute the human race. Man, that Google synopsis gives a lot away, but that's okay. I think that this is one of those vampire movies that has definitely transcended the era in which it was released. This is one that I have actually seen clips of online despite never having seen the film. There's the iconic opening that takes place in the club, and if you don't know, I won't spoil it. I am jealous that you won't have it spoiled because I did, but it didn't really dull the impact of that opening. The highlight for me with this movie was definitely all the action. Wesley Snipes is such a badass, and I also really enjoy having a morally gray protagonist. If you've been around, you know this about me, and I feel that Blade really was the embodiment of that. Also, the entire third act is just balls to the wall insane. That late 90s CGI, I was having a blast. More than anything, Blade is just fun. It's just a ruckus good time. Now again, I did want to check out some of the sequels before I made this ranking. I have heard kind of mixed things about the first sequel, but I've heard a lot of people say that it's really good, so I know that I need to check out Blade 2. I have not heard good things about the third movie. I know that I'll catch up on all of it eventually anyways though, but maybe let me know your favorite in the trilogy. Also, why does it have a 58% on Rotten Tomatoes? I mean, I could guess that maybe it's because of the ludicrous third act, but for me personally, that wasn't enough to discount it. And by the way, now we are in my 4-star section of this list, including my number 6 pick, which is From Dusk Till Dawn. I liked this movie so much more than I thought I was going to, although I should have known that with the movie starring George Clooney, he doesn't say yes to a bad script. 2 criminals and their hostages unknowingly seek temporary refuge in a truck stop populated by vampires. This also stars Quentin Tarantino and Juliette Lewis and Harvey Keitel. Keitel? I just realized I've never read his name out loud before. Now, what you need to know is that yes, this is the movie that has gone viral several times for being the movie that Quentin Tarantino wrote himself and then cast Salma Hayek as the beautiful woman who pours a drink down her leg and makes Quentin Tarantino himself suck the drink off of her toes. Yes, he orchestrated this whole thing, and yes, we all feel really weird about it. But once you push that ick out of your mind, you can enjoy the movie for what it is. Because beyond that point, it is just an action-packed vampire adventure. Simply just a good time. There are so many fantastic gags in the movie. Tom Savini Viennese there for a good portion of it. He has this cock gun. It's so great. It's on his crotch. He can pop it open without his hands and start shooting it. Don't know how it works. Don't care. That's just the kind of fun gag that I love to see. Now, some might consider it a spoiler that I just told you that that's a vampire movie at all, because it really doesn't kick off until like the latter half of the film, and it is kind of posed as this big reveal because the movie completely shifts gears. For some people, that doesn't work at all. For a lot of people though, like a surprising amount of people, it works really well. It's the kind of stupid that I really appreciate, that I find really charming, and also just having that high caliber of actors in it with Juliette Lewis and George Clooney, it's incredible because they are so talented that even though it is surface level very obviously comedic, they play it so earnestly that it makes it 10 times more hilarious. Really enjoyed From Dusk Till Dawn. Would own it, would rewatch, so surprisingly, because there are really unsavory elements in it that I think are like supposed to be funny, but it's just Quentin Tarantino's character being disgusting scum of the earth. The way that I handle that though, so as not to be supremely creeped out and like too icked out to watch the movie, is I laugh at Quentin Tarantino. I don't laugh with him. I just think, oh, you thought you could cast yourself as George Clooney's brother? You thought your genetics were believably similar? Okay. Oh, Haunted Hippie, that was mean. I'm mean to weird, creepy men. Get used to it. Anyway, we are gonna be getting away from all of that kind of chauvinism from here on out. My top 5 vampire movies of all time are truly for the girls. And no, it's not just all 5 movies of the Twilight franchise. I wasn't gonna do that. But at number 5, we have A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. Anna Lily Amirpour directs this 2014 film. It also is in Persian. Residents of a worn-down Iranian city encounter a skateboarding vampire who preys on men who disrespect women. The Google synopsis boils this down to something a lot more succinct than it really is. I mean, at the end of the day, she is a feminist. But we also follow the character named Arash as he is dealing with his father, who is a junkie. He's dealing with his place in the class system of his country. And we see a lot of characters that we don't typically get the point of view from in movies in general. There also is kind of like this neighborhood sex worker whose perspective we dip into from time to time. The pacing of this movie is so deliberately measured that I often felt like I was being hypnotized by it. I just was so drawn in. But my favorite thing about it was, again, how morally gray our protagonists were. Arash and the girl, as she's called, she's not even given a name, they're not outright acting in the interest of feminism, ridding the world of bad men and bad people. Both of them are pretty self-serving. This movie doesn't seem that interested in exploring the woman good, men bad thing. It's not that simple. These characters make a lot of very emotionally tumultuous decisions, and yet it somehow ends up being this really beautiful story about how these characters find each other. I loved it. I think that upon a second viewing, my rating would go up a little bit because it was a 4-star for me. At times I did feel like it was a little bit too slow, though for the majority I felt quite sucked in, but at times, like that super slow pacing, I was falling out a little bit. That's why it's not higher on the list, but just as a work of art, it's a movie that certainly will leave me thinking about it for until the end of time, I guess. At number 4, we are getting into my 4.5-star films. We have Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person, and I am so sad that I missed this movie in 2024 because it easily would have made, I think, at least my top 10 horror movies of 2024, though it's not really a horror movie. It's definitely got horror elements. People die, vampires are biting into people's necks, sure, but at the end of the day, it's really more of a coming of age story. It is so cute. It's not like a super art house type French film because it is in French, and so like I kind of had some preconceived judgments about it. But when I checked it out, I was like, oh my god, no, this is just like a super accessible, fun, funny, kind of campy teen film. Great coming of age story. I think that anyone at any age would enjoy it. It captures a lot about girlhood that I really appreciated, whereas a lot of vampire movies focus on the angst. This one certainly did too. But also its major focus was that it's hard to be an empathetic girly in the world. It's nearly impossible. Like it's almost impossible to survive when you actually give a shit about other people.
You just walk around all day thinking about other people's feelings?
Yeah, don't you?
No. How do you get anything done? It's hard.
I think it's so fun to explore this really sensitive, girly vampire. She doesn't want to kill humans. She doesn't need to kill them to know that she's not gonna like it, but she has to find a way to survive in this world. I had so much fun with it. I thought that it was so cute. Loved it. Oh, also, I didn't read the synopsis because I felt like the title was like very self-explanatory, and also the themes that I just touched on, like that's what it's all about. The plot is not super crucial. Same thing with my number 3 pick, Only Lovers Left Alive. I am so happy that I finally watched this movie. It had been on my watch list for way too long. Artistic, sophisticated, and centuries old, 2 vampire lovers ponder their ultimate place in modern society. The synopsis is short and sweet because there is not really much plot to this movie at all. It basically just is these 2 very bored immortals who love each other dearly, but they kind of need to stop each other from committing. And you know what type of committing I'm talking about, okay? They're very, very old and they're very bored, and they call humans zombies because they're just sick to death of them. This movie is very popular, but I did also see that there is a pretty strong sentiment of people that feel like this movie is really pretentious, and I get where you're coming from, but I just have to imagine that if there was a vampire that was like 500 years old, it's like, imagine your grandparents, but times 1,000, and how snobby they are, and you know, how they think the world has gone to shit. It just felt completely on brand for the movie and for these kind of characters. Most vampire movies neglect the fact that living that long would become exceedingly boring. Now, not for me personally. I could live 2,000 years and still not see every single city on this earth. That's something I want to do, and I'm mortal. So if I had the power to never die, then that's what I'd be up to. Nonetheless, I could relate to these boring old vampires. The chemistry between Tilda Swinton and Tom Hiddleston was so unreal. I really did buy the fact that they had been in love for centuries, monogamous for centuries, and just had memorized each other's every movement and every curve. They knew how not to fight because they'd been in a million of those arguments before and already knew how they would end before they started, so they just could read each other so well and knew exactly what to do, exactly how to handle any situation. So then I found it even more beautiful that they were still together, because what do you do after you've had all your fights and all your peaks? Sort of had an everything everywhere all at once quality to it, where it's like, yeah, we could just do laundry and taxes and I'd be perfectly happy. But these guys, they're a little bit suicidal. Like, they do need a little bit more. They're trying to spice up their life just a little bit, but mostly it's just a bored immortal hangout, and I loved it. Loved almost every single second of it. In fact, when the movie started and it was a slowed down version of Funnel of Love, and it was like this overhead spinning shot, so gorgeous, I immediately paused it and I said, I need to smoke half of a joint right now. And then I did. And then I took a hot shower, got really cozy, got back in bed, watched the movie, had the time of my life. Oh, I must move on. Oh my goodness. At my number 2 spot, we have What We Do in the Shadows. This is a little bit of a divergence of the vampirism equals girlhood movies that I love. But you know what else I love? Comedies. And I do love a good era of Taika Waititi's career. Vampire housemates try to cope with the complexities of modern life and show a newly turned hipster some of the perks of being undead. I fucking forgot Renfield. Oh my god, I forgot to put Renfield on my list. Oh no. Oh gosh, this changes everything. I'm sorry, I'm gonna talk about What We Do in the Shadows, but I pulled up What We Do in the Shadows to read the synopsis, and then Renfield popped up, and I don't know, frankly, how I forgot to talk about that movie because I love it so much. This happens a lot though. That's why these top 10 lists that I do are so fluid, because I often forget things, and I'm sure that even though I just discovered that I was missing Renfield, there's gonna be something else that I'm missing. I guarantee it. Someone's gonna comment it and be like, I can't believe you left this one off. And I'll be like, yeah, that's because I didn't mean to. Renfield, I'm gonna place at number 6. That is a 4-star movie for me. Once again, I will continue to beat this dead horse. I'm never forgiving y'all for letting that one flop at the box office. By the way, another excellent Nicholas Hoult vampire movie. Thank you very much. I won't dwell though because I need to get on to my top 2, but I love Renfield. Nicolas Cage is one of my favorite people to ever play Dracula, if not actually my very favorite, because if you'll notice, there is not a single other Dracula adaptation in my top 10. So anyway, What We Do in the Shadows is one one of the funniest comedy movies I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't think there's another comedy movie I've seen where I've laughed that much. And granted, I was with a group of my friends and I was high off my ass. That typically leads to much more positive viewing experiences for films, but it was the same group of friends that I watched The Shiver of the Vampires with. So I think that's saying something, because this one ended up being a 4.5 star, whereas that one was a 3.5 star. I don't have anything else to say beyond that, because it's not like stylistically it's one of the most artistic vampire movies on this list. It is just that funny. I just had that good of a time with it. And I know that I need to watch the TV show. It's just that now there are like 6 seasons, so I feel very behind. It feels kind of like a daunting task. I know I would like it. You don't need to tell me. I know. If you're a fan of comedies, especially dark comedies, my god, you would love What We Do in the Shadows. But now, my number one vampire movie of all time. A lot of you guys already knew before you clicked on this video, and I have no shame. My number one vampire movie of all time is Twilight. Let's wake that up. Oh, how dare. That's right, suck my dick. Twilight is everything that I need in a film. Twilight is everything to me personally. Twilight captures the essence of girlhood in a way that so few movies can do. And take note, 3 out of my top 5 are vampire movies that were directed by women. I really do think that the feminine angle is the best angle to take concerning vampirism. The metaphor of penetration, let's start there. Actually, I don't need to get into that. You get it already. The idea of eternal youth, yeah, that's appealing to women. Have you seen The Substance? A lot of people don't want to hear this. Vampires are supposed to be sexy. I don't understand why some men act like Twilight ruined the vampire subgenre. Vampires have always been sexy. Have you seen Bela Lugosi? Are we gonna play dumb about that? Are we serious? Immortality, eternal youth, inherently sexy concepts. Yeah, some depictions of vampires, they kinda age and they get all nasty and wrinkly, but the base concept of immortality, eternal love, these are always things that have gone hand in hand with vampirism. Oh, but Dracula, how about Carmilla? That predates Dracula, that Dracula was inspired by. Just miss me with all that stuff. You know what? The thing is, yes, Twilight is campy, but it's campy because of how deadly serious it is. Do you understand how realistic Twilight is? Do you understand how many millions of girls and women across the world resonated with the fact that this girl would give up her life to become a vampire for love, for a boy that she met not even a week ago? Truth. That's what Twilight is. Twilight is my Bible. I just cannot stress to you enough how serious teen girl angst is. Boys do not feel it in the same way. Boys just get really horny at that age. Girls experience love that is so deep that they would literally kill themselves over it. Especially for a suburban white girl like myself. Are you kidding me? Yeah, having my heart broken at age 17 would have been the biggest problem that I ever faced in life. Yeah, it did feel like life or death. So, yeah, sorry men that you didn't get to feel things that deeply, that young in life, or maybe ever, but Twilight contains the hard-hitting truths, and that is where I leave you today. Now to just really quickly go over my top 10 again, because it did change just a couple minutes ago. Number 10, we have 30 Days of Night. Number 9, Shiver of the Vampires. Number 8, we have Blade. At number 7, From Dusk Till Dawn. At number 6, we have Renfield. Number 5, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. Number 4, A Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person. At number 3, Only Lovers Left Alive. At number 2, What We Do in the Shadows. And at number 1, Twilight. And I am talking about the original Twilight. That is the only perfect 5-star movie on this list, by the way, but you could just consider like the entire Twilight franchise to be at number 1, though there is a lot of varying quality there. New Moon would be towards the bottom of this list. Eclipse would be towards the top for sure, like that might even be in my top 5. Breaking Dawn Part 1, kinda mid, but still I think would make it like middle tier. And then Breaking Dawn Part 2, I think I'd probably have to put that like at least above Renfield. Anyway, that's enough talk about vampire movies for now. I need to go finish off my snack. So I hope that you enjoyed this list. Let me know what other lists you want to see. I'm thinking that February is going to be werewolf month because Wolfman just came out. But let me know what other subgenres you want to see these top 10 lists for. Yes, they get a little bit chaotic and they might leave some people a little bit white-knuckled, but what did I say at the beginning of this video? I am Satan's favorite daughter and I'm here to cause chaos. So if you would like more videos from me, then what are you waiting for? Click that subscribe button. You want to want to click it so badly. Also check out my other channel where I talk about physical media and where I post travel content. You also get a bonus video every single week on Patreon, depending on which tier you join, and it really helps me out, supports me in the off season. More than anything though, I just hope that you enjoyed this video and that I catch you in the next one. Bye.